Atlus's development studios rarely make a game these days that hasn't spawned from the Shin Megami Tensei flagship series. If you're old enough, you even remember the days that Persona had the Shin Megami Tensei branding attached to it. The last successful Atlus-developed series that wasn't associated with Shin Megami Tensei is Etrian Odyssey. You could technically count Catherine, but it is more of a successful one-off title than a series with legs. It's for this reason that Metaphor ReFantazio really excites me. It's super rare for companies that develop JRPGs to throw a huge budget behind a brand new IP. Metaphor in name is truly new, but while it doesn't lean on the name of Shin Megami Tensei or even Persona, the game definitely contains mechanics that are throwbacks to Atlus's best games. And I'd say the game's biggest influences definitely come from the Persona series. The archetypes develop in a similar way that Personas do relative to your developing relationships with various characters over time. Both Persona and Metaphor also have social stats that give players additional dialogue options and even allow you to unlock important side quests. The time management aspects of Persona seem to be inherited by Metaphor ReFantazio too, for better or worse. I would say that, based on my experience with the game, most of your time playing it is going to be spent doing a lot of these same things that you were also doing in Personas 3 through 5. However, it's not just Persona 3 through 5 this game shares traits with. Your allies in this game are just as customizable as your main character is in Metaphor, with battle skills and switchable archetypes, only lacking archetype-specific leader skills and the social stats that the main character develops. This level of customization actually has more in common with modern Shin Megami Tensei games, where your demon party members can be engineered to have the skills and resistances you want them to have. I love this personally, but I also have to admit the characters lose some of their character when they're pretty much identical from a combat perspective, with their only defining characteristics in the game seeming to be their appearance and their combat stats. I even noticed some similarities with Etrian Odyssey, with how boss monsters have attack patterns that can be exploited by knowledgeable players to even completely avoid taking damage throughout the entire fight and get a really nice bonus at the end of battles for doing so. The archetypes do feel a bit like Etrian Odyssey's job classes too, and while classes don't synergize with each other organically like they do in Etrian Odyssey, the game does have a synergy feature where multiple archetypes can combine their press turns to use powerful flashy combo skills. These skills can help destroy powerful enemies very quickly when they also exploit a weakness or land critical hits. The game also inherits the Ariadne thread items from Etrian Odyssey that let you leave a dungeon quickly. Metaphor did tone down significantly on elements to be weak to or exploit, at least compared to Persona 5, and even made it possible for weapons to deal a physical damage type and an element type like slash plus fire with one attack, making even regular attacks quite powerful and very viable depending on what you're fighting and what you're equipped with. Front and back formation is also a game mechanic to reward frontliners with more physical damage when they use physical attacks, and allow squishier magic users to stick around in the back for a damage reduction bonus. The formation can be changed on the fly during a character's turn with no press turn costs, and this is very important to do when powerful enemies are targeting specific rows too in order to reduce or nullify damage. One of my favorite things about this game system is how quick and easy it is to switch archetypes on the fly in the menu, and the auto-equip system seems pretty efficient at having your party members set up after the switch to just continue playing and not having to futz around in the beautiful menus for too long. Like Shin Megami Tensei, there's tactical value to making your characters nullify enemy attacks to remove enemy press turns, and exploiting enemies' weaknesses to give your party more press turns. There's also value in passing your turn to characters better suited to exploiting weaknesses, as losing a half a turn can be more strategically important than wasting a full press turn on an action that's not as effective. The fast and squad combat plays out exactly how I expected it to, and the fast aspect is extremely similar to Falcom's Trails Through Daybreak, where you kill weak enemies or stun powerful enemies in action-based combat to finish them off in turn-based combat. The turn-based combat in Metaphor is much more fluid and quick though, to the point where you can almost press the buttons like it's an action game, since many times by the time you press the button for a turn, the game is already ready for your next input for the next character. The enemies also don't feel too hit point spongy like they can in Trails Through Daybreak. The downside to this fluidity is that it's easy to press the wrong button in turn-based combat and do something you don't want to do. The game also has an awesome feature where you can reset the turn-based battle to its beginning if you don't like how it's going, similar to the Hourglass in the Dragon Quest series. Is using this feature cheaty? It absolutely can be, but it's also a failsafe for those battles that drag on or never seem to end because of some poor decisions on your part that would normally require you to have to reset and reload a save after dying. This quick reset lets you try again with a better strategy immediately instead of having to surf through multiple menus to try again. I can really appreciate this feature since I've played so many RPGs where I just wish I could just quickly restart a battle I fudged, knew I fudged on, and just wanted to retry based on what I learned right away. The protagonist of Metaphor ReFantazio reminds me a lot of the protagonist Flynn from Shin Megami Tensei 4 with the white color scheme on the outfit. I would even go so far as to say that what I've played of Metaphor ReFantazio reminds me of the entire Kingdom of Mikado arc at the beginning of that game too, which also doesn't take place in Tokyo. The human monster monsters in Metaphor remind me a lot of most of the grotesque bosses from Catherine, as weird as it sounds. The twisted stuff of nightmares. I wouldn't be surprised if the same designer made the enemies in both games, and even if there was a similar reason for the enemy's appearance in Metaphor. Now, for all the great things I've said, the demo for Metaphor ReFantazio actually didn't blow me away in the same way the demo for Unicorn Overlord did. I attribute this to the fact that pretty much everything I've seen in Metaphor is something I've seen before in other games. I found the 7 or so hours comprising the demo and the beginning of the game to be extremely slow with its tutorials and pretty uneventful. I also want to say I definitely could have blown through the demo much faster, but I was extremely thorough. And in fact, after I played through the demo once, I played through it again using what I learned to have my time set up more efficiently for the full release. There were maybe 2 cool action scenes and a few dramatic events. The anime cutscenes are quite nice, I should mention, but nothing really hooked me like the intro to Persona 5 and a lot of other good JRPGs did. The beginning of this game was more like the beginning of Persona 4 with its slower pacing. In Metaphor ReFantazio, a lot of the excitement happens before the part where you're actually controlling the main character, and it's portrayed in cool cutscenes. The demo just ends before things reach a climax in the first arc, so it isn't as satisfying to me. Nor did it feel like a cliffhanger that I just had to buy the full game to experience right away. All that said though, a slow beginning doesn't ruin a game for me. I wouldn't have played through the demo twice if it did, but it might for a lot of people. A lot of my favorite RPGs have actually had really slow beginnings. I remember choosing Tressa as my main character in Octopath Traveler, and she had a very slow story overall, but the game still ended up making a big impression on me when I finally managed to beat the final boss. And that's why I'm still excited for Metaphor ReFantazio. If anything, the demo has done a good job of tempering my expectations a bit. I see a lot of fun potential in the archetype system. There are advanced versions of the archetypes too. In the trailer that plays at the end of the demo, I even read some Japanese for an archetype called the Persona Master, which sounds pretty crazy. I wonder who the social link for that archetype will be. The big aha moment for me when I played the demo was when I discovered killing monsters as a mage with the leader skill allowed me to regenerate the SP on my entire party. Once I discovered this, I enjoyed the game a lot more since I could grind up some archetype levels, which I usually enjoy in games with job systems. And yes, I was the guy who abused SP regen accessories to complete dungeons in the Persona game in the minimal amount of time so I could max out the social links in a single playthrough. Exploiting the SP recovery after I discovered it, I replayed the demo and I managed to kill powerful enemies I was forced to avoid my first time through the demo, which was extremely satisfying for me. In my Project RE fantasy video, I already talked about the reservations I had with including time management and too much social stuff in a game like this. I'll link the video below if you care about my opinions. This demo hasn't changed my reservations at all, and the only way I'll know if this game truly does it better than Persona did is to simply play the whole game myself, which I can say I'm still very excited to do. So yeah, the game truly is an anniversary title for Atlus, and I think there are things in this game any fan of their games can appreciate. Famitsu's review is also very encouraging, stating the game is an 80-hour story experience with up to 100 hours for thorough players. They also gave the game a very respectable 37 out of 40 score, tying with their score for the vanilla version of Persona 5. It's certainly a score and expected playtime that makes me feel a little better about paying $70 for a video game, even knowing there's a pretty good chance we'll get a director's cut of the game a few years down the line considering Atlus's history with these kinds of games. I'll be honest, I've skipped watching most of the informational marketing for this game. I almost feel like Atlus is talking too much about it and I'm already going to buy it so they don't need to sell this game to me. I only mention that because if anything I've wondered about has been answered in the multitude of official articles and videos Atlus has been releasing about this game, I apologize. Whether Metaphor ReFantazio will be popular enough to become a new series for Atlus to develop into the future is yet to be seen. Personally, as someone who typically isn't a fan of school settings and games, loves original IP, and the fantasy genre in general, I'm excited to see the Atlus formula applied to a fantasy JRPG. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.